BookTube. This is Becky from Becky Writes, this is Becky Reads, and this is a post-election series on recommended readings. I, like many of you on BookTube, was frankly shocked at the results of Tuesday night's election. I am shocked and saddened that we have elected someone who ran on an explicitly bigoted, racist, sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic campaign. Regardless of what you think about his economic platform and regardless of what you think about his foreign policy, President-elect Trump ran a campaign based on pitting one group of people, white lower middle class voters, against pretty much everyone else. And what this means as of November 12th, when I am filming this video, we are already seeing a severe rise in white nationalism. We are seeing an increased rise of violence and intimidation towards minorities and what are hate crimes. Spray painting swastikas on schools, pulling women's hijabs off, these sorts of things that weren't happening even 2 weeks ago, that maybe were underneath the surface but weren't considered an acceptable part of our communities. And the people who are perpetuating these acts of violence are doing it because they believe that with the election of Trump, they've been given permission. Now, not everybody who voted for Trump wants these things to happen. So what we have to do as communities who are concerned about the direction that America is going in, who want all people to have rights and all people to be safe and to feel free in the United States, is to organize ourselves around the issues that matter to us and to not be complacent and to not get apathetic. If you are upset about this election, you need to harness that energy. And so here is a collection of books that I have gathered to help harness and focus some of that energy and to give you some tools. Now, this is by no means a comprehensive list, so please, please, please understand that this is just a small smattering of the books written about social organizing. But these are the ones that I have used, that I have read, and that my community has worked through when we have done organizing campaigns. I also want to say that there's plenty of more reading that you should do. Again, these are just a few titles to get you started. I'm going to link down below a couple of reading lists for you, the Ferguson reading list so you can better understand issues of race in America, the Lemonade reading list so you can understand the intersection of race and identity in America, and I'm going to have a link to PICO, or People Improving Communities Through Organization. This is a long time and well-established community organization network. It isn't like a single organization, and they work in lots of cities around the country. These are ways that you can get involved and to educate yourself beyond this video and sort of beyond hanging out on the internet. Okay, preface over, and now for the books. The first book that I want to talk about is The True Believer by Eric Hoffer. I read this in college for a class on ideology, and I have to say this is one of the books that has stuck with me for a long time. This is a study of mass movements and really ideology. How does someone go from an average Joe to a fanatic? This looks particularly at the context of the Holocaust in Germany and communism in the Soviet Union, because those are two areas in which average, everyday, good people were capable of doing really horrible things because they were true believers. Now, this is more of an academic text, although I'm pretty sure you can get it just about anywhere. It's considered a classic, and it is a really interesting study of mass movements, both to kind of give you an idea of how to shape a mass movement, but also to what to be aware of. I want us to be organizers, but I don't want any of us to become fanatics, because fanatics can't compromise and fanatics can't meet people in the middle. And the nature of community organizing is to be able to see and empathize with the other so you build a better community. And that's not what ideology is about. So if you're interested in understanding some of the psychology and sociology and structure of mass movements on the whole, I really, really recommend The True Believer. The next two books I'm going to recommend all gear towards an economic focus. Now, these are a little bit less hands-on as far as community organizing go, which is why I'm mentioning them up front. These are really about what you can do to deal with economic disparities, although the first book is a little bit more broad than economic disparities, but they all do focus on poverty and issues of economic injustice. The first of these is The Life You Can Save by Peter Singer. Peter Singer does a really good job in a pretty slim volume of going over ways that you can appreciably work towards saving real lives. Now, this is particularly in the context of international development, as are the other two. I have a background in international development work, so these do slant to the international stage and not to the national stage, but some of his arguments are really valid. I do want to point out that Peter Singer is a white man of privilege, and you can tell in this work, but it doesn't negate the fact that he's asking really tough ethical questions, and he's encouraging people to make real life appreciable changes. So if you want a shorter book, particularly looking at the ways that you can save a life through Addressing Economic Disparity, The Life You Can Save by Peter Singer is a classic and I would recommend it. The next two are really about understanding economic disparity and the role they play in perpetuating systems of oppression. The first one is The End of Poverty by Jeffrey Sachs, and this is a look at economics and the ways that we can appreciably work to end poverty globally, worldwide, ending poverty. And Jeffrey Sachs is a leading economist who has written several books and several articles, and for me, I think that this is a really accessible read for people who do not have a background in economics. If you are brand new to understanding economic disparity and want to look at it in a global context, I would recommend The End of Poverty because it goes into a lot of overview of major economic systems, especially things that I didn't know were in play when I was first studying economics and development. So this is a great read. It was written for a popular audience, and I would definitely encourage you to check it out. The last one of the group of educating yourself on economic disparity is the densest and the hardest to read, and that is Development as Freedom by Amartya Sen. He was the master of Trinity College in Cambridge when I was there. He has won a Nobel Prize for economics. Like, this guy is really smart. And he couches his understanding of economics not in purely monetary sense, but in the sense of freedoms and unfreedoms. And beginning to understand economics and disparity and sort of quality of life in terms of freedoms and unfreedoms is one of the most life-changing, revolutionary ways that I was able to see the world. When I saw things in terms of freedoms versus unfreedoms instead of purely monetary terms, it really helped me to catch my own blind spots as far as where I have privilege, to catch my own blind spots as far as where I have advantage. Like, it was just so important to me. This is dense, this will be a challenge to get through, but it is worth taking on. So if you are interested in the challenge and you want to look at economics and kind of worldwide disparity, global disparity in terms of freedom and unfreedom, there is no better book. There is no better book, in my opinion, than Development as Freedom by Amartya Sen. It's so worth it, and I really, really recommend this one. All right, so now I have a collection of books with actual appreciable organizing tools. These are going to give you a little bit of knowledge on how to organize for grassroots movements and how to organize yourself, how to figure out what motivates you and figure out where you can put your energies best. Okay, the first book I want to recommend is World Changing 101. This is by David LaMotte. David LaMotte is a folk singer who has had a successful career in the United States and then did a Rotary Peace Fellowship. He lived in Australia and then I think he spent a summer working in India maybe, I'm not exactly sure, but he wrote this book in response to so many people he talked to saying, yeah, I see that you want to like do the changing the world and do peace, but like I'm just one person and like I don't want to be Martin Luther King and I don't want to lead everything, and the mountain of crazy nonsense we have to tackle is too high, so like what can I do? One of the stories he talks about in this book is how Rosa Parks was the local NAACP secretary for like 12 years before she ever did civil disobedience and didn't give up her seat on the bus. She showed up and was a secretary, a volunteer secretary for years and years and years before that life-changing moment, and how you can show up and be the secretary for a community, and that in of itself is world-changing. So this is a great book if you're looking at how you in your own personal life, just organizing yourself, can change the world. Another book in that vein that's going to look at you specifically or a small group of people is What Can One Person Do by Sabina, Alkire, and Edmund Newell. I can never say her name. And these were written by two Episcopal priests. This one is going to have a religious slant, a particularly Christian slant to it, but it is also a good book for you to wrestle with what can you do, and kind of getting over the sort of, oh my gosh, there's a mountain of work, how am I ever going to do anything useful? It's a slim volume. I prefer World Building 101, but this one's going to be a little bit more available as far as libraries go. I do think this is a good book to read as far as self-reflection and can help you figure out where it is and what it is you can do today. Not building a movement, but doing something today and what you're passionate about, and this is a great book to get you started on that. But Brecky, I want to organize a mass movement and I want to do a protest and a march, and I hear you. Here are some good books to help you in that setting. The first one is called Grassroots, a field guide for feminist activists. Now this book is a little bit dated. I think it was published 7 or 8 years ago, and I'm sure that there might be books that are a little bit more recent, but this is one that I used when I worked on a women's college. This is one that I have referred to when thinking about how to organize around specific events. But if you're trying to build a movement, if you live in an area where there aren't communities organizing around an issue that you're passionate about, I think that this is a really great, basic, hands-on, what do you need to do to get things done kind of book. I also am a little bit more comfortable with this for the sort of average first-time organizer. This one isn't going to be giving you major scaffolding of philosophical treaties. This is a pretty much a how-to kind of guide. Some of it's common sense, but some of it is just really helpful knowledge, and I think that this one's a great first beginner's guide to organizing kind of a book. The next book comes with caveats. This one does support anarchism, and I don't believe in anarchism, but I do think some of the strategies and some of the trainings they are wanting you to go through and work on are important. And that is Towards a Collective Liberation, Anti-Racist Organizing, Feminist Praxis, and Movement Building Strategy. Now, this particular book does, like I said, have that sort of anarchist protester bent, and the first couple of chapters deal with that, but then they really do get into some good anti-racist training and how if you are building a movement, you have to be aware of intersectional identities, you have to be aware of implicit racism, you have to be aware of implicit sexism. These things matter. And so, particularly for those of us who present as white or are white, we have to be aware of how we might be taking leadership away from the people who need to be the ones in charge because it's their lives that we're organizing around. There are some definite tools, there is some definite hands-on advice and things that you can take away from that, but there's also a little bit more philosophical conversation about why we're doing what we're doing. And so if that's something you're interested in, I would suggest picking this up, but with the preference that I don't agree with anarchism, so know that going into it. Alright, another totally practical hands-on book that is tiny and is a part of a great series is Cool Tools for Hot Topics, Group Tools for Facilitating Meetings When Things Are Hot. This is a part of the Little Books of Justice and Peace Building collection. There's a ton of these. One of them is the little book of the circle process, one of them is a little book of group dynamics. I mean, they've got some really great titles, and this is literally a hands-on, step-by-step guide of how to handle situations where you have to go into a meeting and things are going to be hard. This is a purely practical guide right here. And so for those of you who are already dealing with how you're going to be handling maybe your coworkers or your classmates on a project or even your family, this is going to give you some tools. Now, it is designed for communities who are already organizing, who are doing these conversations, knowing they're going into a conflict, but I still think that these are completely applicable, and if you do get into organizing, this can help frame some of the reconciliation work that you go on to later do. It literally gives you practical, applicable tools and ideas that you can use as soon as you finish, and it's only like 100 pages, so it's a great little buy. And the final book is the only book I haven't really worked through or used, but my colleagues at my university have used this and have had really good success when they've used it. And that is Engage Exploring Nonviolent Living. Now, this is definitely going to have Christian and probably specifically Catholic overtones, and so if that's not your jam, this might not be for you. This is a workbook that helps you identify the places in which you are not living a nonviolent lifestyle and you can better implement nonviolent resistance and nonviolent action into your life right now. It is a workbook. It is not a book you sit down and read. It is a workbook. It is designed for communities, but I certainly think single people can use this to evaluate their lives. If you are serious about creating a movement or you're a part of something already, this could be a really great evaluative tool. Alright guys, that is my recommendations for the post-election community organizing books. I want to do this video and I want to do this series because I don't want people to feel powerless or voiceless. BookTube is an opportunity for us to celebrate education and literacy and books. It's nonfiction November. These fit right into those themes. Don't feel afraid to pick them up and read them. Even if you're not sure you're going to participate in direct activism, you can still read and understand what's happening so you know how to better support them, so you know how to be a better participant in this democracy. For those of you outside of the United States, I hope that these are interesting at the very least and perhaps informative and encouraging books for you to check out too. I know that it's been hard and I know that I personally have been upset, and if you need to talk to me, my Twitter information will be down below. I'm at Wrights and I'm happy to have a conversation with folks who just need to talk it out. Take care of yourselves and I will see you all very soon. Bye!